Hey teacher friends, welcome back. This is Nina Rodriguez and I am Miss Fit to Teach. Welcome to my channel where I talk about all things teaching and how to stay mentally, physically, and emotionally fit to teach. If I don't already know you, please join our growing community of educators, administrators, and students by hitting that subscribe button below, as well as the notification bell so that you and I can come together every week. The top 5 hardest things about being a teacher. If you have anything to add to this list, feel free. Please, I invite you to add your thoughts to the comments below. I love our discussions. I love hearing from you and as well as your feedback. And again, keep in mind, this list is not comprehensive. This is strictly based on my own 7 years of experience of being in the classroom, sort of going through the motions day to day and based on my experiences. If you have a different experience, I completely respect that and I would love to hear more about it. Number 5. One of the things we spend so much time talking about in our licensure program and then really give no other thought to is planning your next steps. There's a reason why there is a national statistic that basically says teachers stay in the classroom between 3 and 5 years and then after that they leave. And that's kind of a hard pill to swallow because we go through so much work and jump over so many hurdles to get our licensure and then finally to get in a classroom, only to discover that within 3 to 5 years, we don't have another plan. So if you're like me and you want to have longevity in this industry, you feel called to work with students over the course of a lifetime, you want to be thinking more and more about what you see yourself doing in the next 5 years as well as the next 10 years and so on. Do you see yourself as an administrator? Do you want to go into educational policy by way of politics? What is it that you want? That's a question that I think as educators, we need to be more serious about answering and definitely be a little bit more mindful about giving ourselves permission to dream bigger dreams for the length of our careers. Number 4. I think one of the hardest things about being a teacher that nobody could have prepared me for was navigating the educational bureaucracy. And that might sound really broad, and I purposely worded it to be broad because it can manifest in all kinds of ways. Sometimes educational bureaucracy comes in the form of submitting your weekly lesson plans. Other times bureaucracy comes in as you being the substitute teacher for one of your fellow teachers who is not working that day and the school was unable to fill the vacant position with an actual substitute. I think one of the most common and most frustrating ways that educational bureaucracy shows up in our lives day to day, though, is through PD or professional development. Professional development, I have a love-hate relationship with it, as I think many teachers do. It's designed to be a help and not a hindrance, but I think a lot of educators find it to be the reverse, that it's burdensome and it's a hindrance when we would much rather be doing things that can move the needle a little bit more efficiently in our classrooms. But navigating the educational bureaucracy, the problem with that is that I don't think any real licensure program can adequately prepare us for it because bureaucracy looks different in every district, and there are thousands of school districts in the United States alone. Number 3. Maintaining work-life balance. And honestly, I don't know a single industry right now outside of being independently wealthy that isn't going through this exact same one. I think we hear these cries the loudest in the last 2 or 3 years coming from the medical community, nurses, CNAs, LPNs, doctors, all of those things. So we can absolutely relate to that struggle, but work-life balance is bloody difficult to not only establish when you're a teacher, but then you have to fight to maintain it throughout the course of your career. I've watched lots of different videos from different teachers and different coaches talking about and just giving advice on how a teacher can work their schedule and manipulate their obligations to more closely maintain their work-life balance. But I don't know that there's any real silver bullet. Especially in the field of education, there's so much more demand that is put on a teacher's time that falls well outside of their classroom. And because there are so many more obligations, very often we can feel overwhelmed, we can feel underappreciated, and we can feel like we're just not getting enough done. So maybe in a separate video, we'll talk more closely about the importance of work-life balance and also things that we can do to maintain it. But for now, suffice it to say that it made the top 5 list because it's a very, very common thing that I hear from all educators across the spectrum, across the national landscape. And we need to do a better job about being mindful of our own personal and career boundaries and then making sure others respect those too. Number 2, this is another one that I don't really see a lot of teacher licensure programs offering. And I think it's really interesting because it's one of the key, most relevant things you have to come with in your classroom is how to manage your classroom. What kind of rules you have put in place? What are your processes, routines, and procedures? How do you build relationships while also driving test scores? How do you let your kids know that you absolutely care about them? You're one of their biggest fans, you're an advocate for them, but you're also trying to shape a responsible adult who has to learn that they are a cog in a much bigger system that's more vast and complicated than just themselves. How do you invest in your students in ways that won't cause you to feel exhausted and drained and like you don't have anything left to give other important parts of your life, like your own family? Managing a classroom is largely one of the biggest reasons that I see teachers leaving the classroom every year. The different personalities of all of our students, the constant influx of new students, some of them are, of course, very transient. They come and go. There's language barriers now more than ever. And also we have significant learning challenges that are coming in the form of IEPs and differentiated learning. All of these things are enough to drive a teacher crazy, and it can be very, very taxing to manage all of those different elements in a classroom and still provide a meaningful lesson. And even though that is wildly important to the quality of life you have as a teacher and also the longevity of your career, it's still not more important than number 1. On my list of the top 5 hardest things about being a teacher this year, I think specifically after teaching for 7 long years, I have to say one of the biggest battles I grapple with mentally day to day is being and feeling like I am the best possible teacher that I can be. I can't tell you, like, in a world of social media and comparison, more times than not, I feel like at the end of a school day, I wasn't the teacher that I was hoping I would be, or the teacher that I had it in my head I was going to be that day. And that can be for a lot of reasons. Maybe one of your lessons that you thought was bulletproof ended up just being a total nightmare. Maybe because you were having to spend the entire day navigating the educational bureaucracy, you didn't have any energy left to do other important things like build relationships with your students or manage your classroom effectively. I think because the other 4 elements ultimately tie into how I feel about myself as a teacher, that it's probably the number 1 most critical thing that teachers need to be dealing with right now is how they feel and how they see themselves as educators and as human beings. Look, whether you gave a good lesson or not, or whether you get along with your students 100% of the time or only 10% of the time, you still have to walk away from your job each day feeling good about you. And if teaching leaves you feeling a deficit within yourself, then I think it's time to reevaluate some things. On the other hand, if you walk away from your classroom each day feeling like you've done the very best you could, you've given everything that you had, you left it all on the floor, and you have some energy in the tank to still fulfill other areas in your life that day, you're doing a great job, and that's the best that anybody can ask you to do. So there it is, my top 5 list of the hardest things about being a teacher. Thank you so much for watching. Once again, if you have something to add to this list or you see things a bit differently, please leave that in the comments. Our growing community would love to hear from you, and so would I. Thanks so much for watching, and remember, do all you can to stay fit to teach. Be well.